asked. No. Then why? They said together. Quetzalcoatl answered without pause. So that a new humanity can rise, not from empty command, but from memory. They will be born of what already lived and ended. They will carry that inside them, even though they do not know. The Lord and Lady of Death exchanged a look that mortals would have missed. It was not anger, it was calculations. You may have the bones, the Lord said, if you can take them. But nothing in Mictlan is simply given. This realm does not exist to please the living or the gods. If you want them, you will face our trials. Quetzalcoatl nodded once, then let them begin. The first was a trial of direction. The Lord of Death instructed Quetzalcoatl, take these bones and circle Mictlan 4 times. Return to this place, carrying them all. Now they gave him no map. The plains ahead looked identical, fields of bone fragments and dust, low hills that shifted as if they were breathing. Quetzalcoatl gathered the bones as carefully as he could, bundling femurs, ribs, jawbones, pieces of skull that once housed thoughts and dreams. He carried them in his arms and moved forward. With each step, the land changed. What had been flat became broken. What had been open became choked with jagged stone. He walked into the landscape itself, seemed offended by his persistence. A lesser being would have relied on sight. Quetzalcoatl trusted something else. He listened to the patterns of the wind. Even here in the land of the dead. He noted the way the ash moved, the way sound echoed from distant rock. He let those things guide him, subtle markers in a place designed to erase direction. 1 circle, 2 circles, 3 circles, and on the 4th, the ground began to tilt, as if the realm itself were trying to shrug him off. Ridges rose under his feet, gaps opened suddenly. He stumbled, nearly dropping the bones. He tightened his grip and kept moving, not fast, but steady, until he came once again to the place where the Lord and the Lady waited. You have completed the trial, they said, and they did not sound pleased, but they did not object. Now the second trial was that of sound. The Lady of Death handed him a conch shell. It was smooth, heavy, and completely sealed. Blow this as a trumpet, she said, so that all Mictlan hears your call. Quetzalcoatl turned the shell over in his hand. It had no holes, no mouth for breath to enter. A trick then, he understood. The kind that relies on reflex, that a god, insulted by impossibility, will lash out, shout back, storm away, or break the object in anger. Quetzalcoatl did none of these things. He placed the shell on the ground. He called the smallest beings of the underworld to him, and worms emerged from the soil, thin bodies slicing over stone. Open a path, he told them. They bore into this shell, carving tunnels through its inner spirals. Then he called bees, high, bright spirits of the surface world, who still answered his wind-born summons. Fill it with breath, he told them. They flew into the shell's new tunnels, their wings turning the hollow space into a living instrument. Quetzalcoatl lifted the conch to his lips and blew. The sound that emerged was low and vast, a tone that seemed to roll through Mictlan's bones as much as through the air. For a moment, the dead heard something that did not belong in their realm. The wave of memories, the sweep of air across open land, the echo of a world above. The Lord and Lady of Death glanced at each other again. You have completed the second trial, they said. Their voices held no warmth. The third trial looked simple. Carry the bones out of Mictlan, the Lord said. Take them to your living world, if you can, and we will not stop you. He said it kindly, but that was a warning. Quetzalcoatl gathered the bones again, this time aware of how fragile his mission truly was. These were not stones that he could simply replace if dropped. These were the remains of ages. He began the journey upward. The paths were no easier in reverse. The wind still cut, the mountains still moved, but now a new difficulty joined them: other hands. As he climbed, unseen forces jostled him. The ground beneath his feet shifted more violently, not like the natural tremors, but like the hand shaking a table for the pleasure of watching things fall. Birds with obsidian beaks, agents of the underworld, some say, swooped down, pecking at the bones, trying to knock them free. At a narrow ledge above the dark ravine, the assault became too much. One hand struck his arm, one slip, a misjudged step, and Quetzalcoatl stumbled. The bundle of bones spilled from his grasp, clattering across the stone, hell across the roof. Some remained close, others shattered as they hit the ground, breaking into smaller and smaller pieces, rolling into cracks, falling into the ravine below. It was not a clean drop. This was chaos, clattering loss. The sound echoed through Mictlan. The Lord and Lady of Death listened. "Look," they said, "the bones are broken. Humanity cannot be restored. Our records remain intact, but you have failed." Now, in many myths, this is where a god would rage, where the story would become a battle. Quetzalcoatl did not draw a weapon. He knelt. He moved slowly, carefully, collecting what fragments he could reach. Whole bones, half bones, pieces too small to name. His hands shook, not with fear of punishment, but with the weight of what he was trying to hold together. He could not get them all. There would be gaps, missing pieces, parts of former humans lost forever. And he knew what that meant. This humanity would not be perfect. It could not be. And still, he did not stop. When he gathered all that he could, Quetzalcoatl did something that changed more than one world. He wounded himself. He drew a sharp shard of bone across his own skin and let his blood fall into the pile. Now, divine blood, rich with memory and intent, mixed with the broken fragments of ancient lives. He did not sprinkle a ceremonial drop and step away. He bled. The bones drank the blood like dry earth drinks rain. And something moved. Not a god's command, not a clean act of creation that snaps reality from nothing. This was something slower. It was messier, and it was real. Forms began to knit together, not as copies of single perfect design, but as a collage of what was available. It was tall and short, strong and fragile, bodies that would age and tire and break. The Lord and Lady of Death watched, surprised despite themselves. "You would do this?" they asked. "Create a world of beings assembled from broken parts, held together by your own sacrifice?" "Yes," Quetzalcoatl said. "Why?" they pressed. "Because perfection does not endure," he answered. "We've all seen that. But something born from loss understands, even when it does not remember, that life is not guaranteed, and that is what makes it precious." Now, in some tellings, the Lords of Death protest. In others, they simply fall silent. But in all of them, the result is the same. Humanity is reborn again. Quetzalcoatl carried the bones, now living, now potential, back through the layers of Mictlan, through cutting winds and shifting stone, through corridors where echoes tried to convince him to turn back. He emerged into the world above, into air that did not burn his lungs, into light that did not feel like interrogation. He scattered maize over the ground and taught the humans how to coax food from the soil. He taught them how to mark time so they could remember when the rains would come and when the cold would return. He taught them how to speak, not only to ask and demand, but to pray, to recall, to sing. He did not make them worship him. He did not claim them as property. His blood was already in them, and there was no need to brand them from outside. This is why in these stories, human beings are not invincible, not flawless, and not eternally obedient. They are born from broken bones and a God's voluntary wound. We crack, we forget, we hurt each other, we love anyway. We are not the triumph of divine planning. We are the result of a God who failed the ritual of perfection, refused to accept the failure as the end, and chose to bleed rather than abandon the attempt. That is what distinguishes Quetzalcoatl from gods who only know how to rule with fear. He did not storm Mictlan to seize a prize. He descended, was tested, fell, and still continued. He did not stand above humanity and issue commands. He knelt among broken bones and gave something of himself so that other people could exist. And when his work was done, he did not stay to sit on a throne over us. He became the wind that moves the unseen, the breath between worlds, the quiet force that nudges seeds to sprout, and the clouds to cross a waiting sky. The descent into Mictlan is not just a story about a god going down and coming back up. It is the record of what we were made of: failure, sacrifice, memory, and the stubborn refusal to leave the world empty. Wadjet, the flame on the brow of kings. Before crowns were forged, before thrones were carved from stone, before kings learned how to speak like gods, power already had a guardian. In the marshlands of the Delta, where water hides depth and reed whispers secrets older than language, Wadjet watched. She did not rule a city. She did not demand temples. She did not walk among the people. She waited. The gods knew chaos does not always arrive as war. Sometimes it comes as doubt, sometimes as betrayal, sometimes as a ruler who forgets why he was chosen. And when the world needed a